I always thought my life was set in stone, predictable like the morning sun. But last night, under the dim light of the garage, something unexpected happened. As Richard, my husband of over 30 years, retreated to bed, exhausted from his new hobby of restoring old cars, I found myself alone with Jake, his young apprentice. The air was charged with an unspoken tension, and in a moment of weakness, I crossed a line I never thought I would. Now, as dawn breaks and I face the day, I'm left wondering, can a moment of betrayal ever be undone? Here I am, Diane, at 60, with a life that's been as predictable as the sunrise. Married to Richard for over 3 decades, we've weathered the storms and basked in the calm. Lately, though, Richard's found a new passion, restoring old cars. The garage has become his sanctuary, and Jake, a young man with the energy of youth, has become his right-hand man. Tonight, the air was thick with the scent of motor oil and the clatter of tools. Jake, nearly 30 years my junior, was there as usual, his laughter mingling with Richard's as they worked on a '67 Mustang. The evening stretched on, the garage lit by the warm glow of the overhead lights, casting long shadows across the concrete floor. As the night deepened, Richard, his face streaked with grease, decided he'd had enough. "I'm beat," he said, wiping his hands on a rag. "Jake, you mind finishing up?" With a nod, Jake agreed, and Richard, with a tired smile, left us alone. The silence that followed was heavy, filled only with the soft hum of the radio playing oldies. I stood there, watching Jake as he tightened bolts with a precision that spoke of his dedication. The moment Richard's footsteps faded, something shifted in the atmosphere. Jake looked up, his eyes meeting mine, and there was a spark, a flicker of something unspoken. He stood, wiping his hands, and approached me. "Mrs. Diane," he started, his voice low. "You look like you could use some company." I felt a warmth spread through me, a mix of guilt and excitement. Here was this young man. After Richard retired to bed, I settled into the living room with a book, the soft glow of the lamp casting a warm light over the pages. The house was quiet, except for the occasional clink from the garage. Jake, having finished his work, came into the living room, wiping his hands on a rag. He grabbed a beer from the fridge, offering me one, which I politely declined. We sat in a comfortable silence, the only sound being the ticking of the grandfather clock in the corner. Jake seemed restless, perhaps from the energy of the night or the few beers he had consumed. He started talking about his life, his dreams, and how he admired Richard for his dedication to his hobbies. As he spoke, his voice grew softer, more intimate. He leaned closer, his eyes searching mine for something unspoken. The air between us charged with a tension that was palpable. Jake's hand brushed against mine, sending a shiver up my spine. "Mrs. Diane," he whispered, his breath warm against my ear. "I've been thinking about you a lot lately." My heart raced, the implications of his words clear, yet veiled in a way that made my pulse quicken with both anticipation and apprehension. The room seemed to close in around us, the walls echoing with the unspoken desires that now hung heavy in the air. Jake's touch became more deliberate, his fingers tracing the outline of my hand. I knew where this was heading, and part of me wanted to pull away, to preserve the sanctity of my marriage. But another part, a part I hadn't acknowledged in years, was curious, eager even. The atmosphere in the room shifted. It was no longer just about as Jake spoke. His voice grew softer, more intimate. He moved closer, sitting beside me on the couch. His eyes, usually so full of youthful vigor, now held a different kind of intensity. Without warning, he placed his hands on my waist, his touch sending an unexpected shiver through me. His lips brushed against my neck, a gentle, yet forbidden caress. In that moment, a wave of confusion and desire washed over me. Here was this young, vibrant man, so different from the life I knew with Richard. The room seemed to close in, the air thick with the scent of beer and the musk of his skin. My heart pounded, not just from the physical proximity, but from the realization of what was happening.
Jake's fingers traced the curve of my waist, each touch igniting a fire I hadn't felt in years. His breath was warm against my skin, his lips moving with a tender insistence that made my resolve waver. The world outside this room, with its rules and expectations, seemed to fade away, leaving only the two of us in a bubble of forbidden intimacy. I could feel the heat from his body, the slight tremble in his hands as they explored the contours of my back. His voice, now a whisper, murmured words that were both a question and an invitation. "Diane, do you feel this too?" The question hung in the air, charged with the electricity of our mutual attraction. My mind raced with thoughts of Richard, of our life together, of the vows we had made. Yet here was Jake, offering something wild, something that stirred a part of me I thought had long been dormant. I knew I should pull away, should put an end to this before it went any further. But as his lips found mine, the kiss was like a spark to dry tinder, igniting a flame that threatened to consume all rational thought. The kiss deepened, and I found myself responding, my hands moving to his shoulders, feeling the strength beneath his shirt. The decision loomed before me, stark and unavoidable. To give in would be to betray everything I had built with Richard, but to resist would mean denying this intense, unexpected connection. Jake's I knew I should pull away, tell him to stop, but something in me hesitated. The warmth of his breath, the firmness of his grip, it all felt like a forbidden thrill, a stark contrast to the routine of my daily life. Jake's lips moved to mine, and for a fleeting second, I kissed him back. The kiss was brief, but it was enough to cross the line I had never thought I would cross. The reality of what I was doing hit me like a cold wave. I pulled back, my breath ragged, my mind racing. Jake looked at me, his expression a mix of confusion and desire. I stood up, my legs shaky, the room spinning slightly from the intensity of the moment. "Jake, this can't happen," I stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. The weight of my words seemed to anchor me back to reality, to the life I had built with Richard. Jake's eyes searched mine, looking for a sign that I might change my mind, but I couldn't. The thrill was intoxicating, but the guilt was overwhelming. "I'm sorry," I said, more to myself than to him. "This was a mistake." He nodded slowly, the fire in his eyes dimming. "I understand, Mrs. Diane," he said, his voice tinged with regret. He stood up, moving towards the door, his steps heavy with the weight of what could have been. As he left, the room felt colder, the silence deafening. I sat back down, my hands trembling as I tried to process the whirlwind of emotions. The grandfather clock's ticking seemed louder now, each second a reminder of the time I had just lost, of the line I had crossed. I knew I had to face Richard, to look into his eyes and see if they still held the same love, the same trust. The thought was terrifying. What would he say? What would he do? But more than that, I had to face myself. The woman who had just kissed another man, not out of love, but out of a longing for something different, something wild. I had to decide who I was now, after this moment. The silence that followed was deafening. I stood up, my legs shaky, and walked to the window looking out into the darkness. Jake didn't follow. He just sat there watching me. My heart was a tumult of guilt, excitement, and fear. I turned to face him, my voice barely a whisper. "This can't happen, Jake, it's wrong." He nodded, his face now sober, the earlier playfulness gone. "I'm sorry, Diane. I got carried away," he said, standing up to leave. His steps echoed through the quiet house, each one a reminder of the line we had almost crossed. As he walked towards the door, I felt a pang of something I couldn't quite name. Was it relief or regret? The door closed behind him with a soft click, and I was left alone with my thoughts, the room now feeling too large, too empty. I returned to the couch, sinking into the cushions that still held the warmth of our brief, forbidden closeness. The air was thick with the scent of his cologne, a scent that now felt like a betrayal. My mind replayed the moment, the touch, the kiss, each memory a sharp sting of guilt. I knew I had to confront what this night meant for my marriage. Richard, my husband of over 30 years, was upstairs, asleep, unaware of the storm brewing in my heart. How could I face him, knowing what I had done? The thought of looking into his eyes, those eyes that had seen me through so much, filled me with dread. The grandfather clock continued its relentless ticking, marking the passage of time, each second a step further from the woman I thought I was. The thrill of the forbidden had been intoxicating, but now, in the cold light of reality, it felt like a poison, seeping into the very foundation of my life with Richard. I wondered about Jake. What was he feeling as he walked away? Was he as conflicted as I was, or was this just another fleeting encounter for him? The youth in his eyes, the vigour in his touch, it was all so different from the life I had known, so tempting yet so dangerous. And then there was. The next morning, Richard was none the wiser, his usual cheerful self as he made breakfast. I watched him, my heart heavy with the secret I now carried. Jake didn't come over for a few days, and when he did, there was an unspoken tension between us. I knew I had to confront what happened, not just for my sake, but for Richard's. That evening after dinner, I sat Richard down and told him everything. His reaction was not what I expected. There was hurt, yes, but also a surprising understanding. "Richard," I began, my voice trembling, "there's something I need to tell you. Last night, after you went to bed, Jake and we had a moment. It was brief, but it shouldn't have happened." Richard's face fell, his eyes searching mine for the truth. "A moment?" he echoed, his voice low, laced with a mix of pain and confusion. "Yes," I admitted, feeling the weight of my confession. "He kissed me, and I kissed him back for a second before I realised what was happening. I stopped it, Richard. I told him it was wrong." He looked away, his jaw clenching as he processed my words. After a long silence, he turned back to me. "Why, Diane? Why did it happen?" I took a deep breath, tears welling up. "I don't know, Richard. It was a moment of weakness, a fleeting desire for something different. But it was wrong, and I'm so sorry." We talked for hours, about trust, about our marriage, about what we both wanted moving forward. Richard's understanding came from a place of love, but it was clear the trust had been shaken. "We need help, Diane," he finally said, his voice steady but his eyes betraying his pain. "We need to talk to someone, to work through this." In the end, we decided to seek counselling, to rebuild what was shaken. Jake, after a heartfelt apology, distanced himself, respecting our need for space. Life isn't perfect, and choices like mine can fracture even the strongest bonds. But through honesty and effort, don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.